5 of us were in the group, and if we count Long Tom, the guide, that makes 6. After 2 days of tough climbing, which the donkeys endured bravely, we reached a small valley high up in the mountains with a stream where trout swam. "You all head into the cabin there and make yourselves comfortable while I unpack," Long Tom said. "There's nobody in there. My partner is down below." "The cabin seems like 2 cabins," the colonel mentioned as we got closer. "That's to save on ridge poles," the doctor explained. "One side for sleeping and the other for the kitchen. You keep your fishing gear and worms in between." We went into the right part of the twin cabin, which was the kitchen. There wasn't much furniture, just a table made of logs, a chair from bent saplings and a rough bench. But we didn't pay much attention to the furniture, because as each one of us stepped over the tall threshold, our focus was instantly drawn to the stove, and a chorus of surprised comments spread among the group. "Well, that surprises me," the stockbroker exclaimed. The professor muttered mysteriously, rubbing his chin. The stove was a simple, small cooking range, quite old and rusty. What made it peculiar was its position. Its short legs were placed on tall cedar posts, rooted in the floor and standing over 4 feet high. This elevated the stove, bringing its top to about the height of the colonel's face, and he was a tall man. We gathered around the stove in a circle, staring at it as seriously as priests around a ceremonial stand. We touched the posts. They were strong and steady, indicating that the curious setup was permanent. Then we all tilted our heads back and opened our mouths to look up at the hole in the roof, where the stovepipe disappeared. Suddenly the stockbroker burst into laughter. "Oh, I get it now," he said. "Get what?" the colonel asked sharply. "Why Long Tom has raised his stove up so high from the floor?" "I do too," the doctor chimed in, "but I suspect my explanation might differ from everyone else's." "Well, I'm confident I'm right," the stockbroker declared, "and I'll bet some money on it." "I'm in," the judge added. "I have a clear idea about that stove, and I'll support it." "Let's make it a bet," the colonel suggested. "I want to join in." The stockbroker took a small yellow coin out of his pocket and placed it on the table. "He put the stove up there," he said, "to get better airflow. Up in these high mountains, there's less oxygen in the air, making it harder to make a fire compared to lower places. I've heard that if you go high enough, you can't even boil water or something like that," he continued, stumbling a bit as he noticed the professor's sarcastic stare. "Is that supposed to be scientific?" asked the professor. "Well," said the stockbroker stubbornly, "let's not worry about the reasons. Long Tom probably found out through experience. Having the stove up in the air seems to help with the airflow, so he keeps it that way." "The correct explanation," the professor began, "is the simplest. I think—" "Excuse me," the stockbroker interrupted, tapping the table. "Are you joining this bet?" The professor put some money on the table and continued. "Have you noticed how tall our host is? Like most tall people, he doesn't like to bend over. If the stove were lower, he'd have to stoop down when cooking pancakes or bacon. But now he can stand up and do it easily. Your airflow theory doesn't hold. The longer the pipe, if it's straight, the better the fire will burn." "Professor," said the colonel, "I'm sorry to say your money's gone. Long Tom told me on the way up that his partner does all the cooking, and he's a shorter man." The colonel then added to the pot and continued, "Now what I think is that the stove warms the room better up there than on the floor. It's just a cooking stove, but when it's cold in the winter it keeps this room cozy. Being in the middle of the space, it warms everything evenly, which it couldn't do if it were lower down." The doctor burst out laughing at this idea. "Colonel," he said, "you're quite off the mark. Hot air rises, and the best way to spread it is by having the stove as low as possible. According to your theory, it would be a good idea to put the furnace in the attic instead of the basement." "I think," said the colonel, "I'd understand your point better if you added to the pot." "The pot's mine," said the doctor, adding his coin. You'll all agree with my idea as soon as you hear it, and Long Tom, who'll be here in a minute, will confirm it. This room is really small. There's hardly any floor space, and none of it is wasted. If he had put the stove down where we expected, Long Tom couldn't have used the area underneath, like he's done here. Around the posts you see hooks for hanging pots and pans, and there's a cupboard underneath for cooking stuff. It's so convenient. Under a regular stove you'd only have space for a poker and a few bugs. The judge, who had been listening to everyone's opinions with a slight smile, now stepped forward and put a coin on the table. He then gave his verdict. None of you seem to have noticed the hooks on the roof just above the stove. They're not being used now, but they're there for a reason. I imagine during winter they hang large pieces of meat over the stove to dry. If the stove were on the floor, it wouldn't be close enough to the roof for that. "Here comes old Tom," yelled the colonel, who had gone to the door while the judge was talking. The old trapper put down his bags and entered the kitchen cabin where we were gathered. He looked at the group and then at the tall stove in the middle of the room. "I see you all admiring my stove," he said. "I bet you've been wondering why it's up so high." "Yes, we have," said the professor. "How did you know?" "People usually start asking me about it as soon as they come in here. That's how I knew."
"Well, why is it up so high?" demanded the stockbroker impatiently, glancing at the growing pile of coins on the table.
"The reason is simple," Long Tom explained, grinning widely. "We had to carry all this stuff up here from down below on donkeys. Originally, there were 4 sections of that stovepipe, but the cinch on the donkey carrying them wasn't tight enough, and 2 of them slipped out and rolled down the mountain. When we got here and saw that we only had 2 pieces left, I figured I'd have to lift the stove to make it fit the pipe, so I went ahead and hoisted it up. And there it still is. By the way, what's all this money on the table for?" A deep silence followed, lasting so long that Tom repeated his question about the money. "It's a jackpot," the doctor explained sadly. "And as far as I can tell, it's yours."